Hey y'all, I'm Seth, alcoholic.
Hey, Seth.
Thank you for having me tonight. I have a just great love and gratitude for this group. It's not my home group, but almost every service commitment outside of sponsorship that I have, whether it's institutions or detox or jails or anything like that, comes through this group and through this group's dedication to service. And I've found that has been critical in not only my sobriety, but my sanity over the past 8 years, is some type of service commitment. And it wasn't like I was just a virtuous, good guy. I just showed up here, and Primary Purpose Group will put you to work. So if you are not interested in service, you want to stay as far away from this group as you can get, because they will force you into it. My sobriety date is August 5th of 2014. And I do have a home group, which is the Keeping It Sober group in Aberdeen. And today I'm still involved in service and meetings, and AA is a huge part of my life. And it allows me to be comfortable and at peace. Just a little thing on service and some of the members here that really blazed the path for me. I was, 5 years sober, and we were going into the Moore County Jail, taking meetings into the Moore County Jail, and it was one of those days where, middle of July, I'm a landscaper, I work outside all day. It was Friday afternoon, had a hard week. I'm just dead tired, and here I got the jail commitment, 3:30 in the afternoon on a Friday. I'm ready to turn in, and I'm cussing going all the way over there. I hadn't even changed out of my work clothes, and I'm saying, man, I don't want to go. This place, they're not even going to listen. These knuckleheads are just going to lay their head down the desk while we're trying to tell our story. And I'm going over there thinking, man, this just isn't, it's not good for me, it's not good for them, and I don't know what to do. And I get there, and I start walking up to the jail. I'm maybe 5 minutes early, and there sits Wallace in his pressed pants and his suspenders, with a toothpick hanging out of the corner of his mouth in that 100-degree day in the middle of July, sitting on the bench. Had gotten there early to wait for me and to go in and share our message. Probably 50 plus years of sobriety, 84 years old, still going to meetings, still carrying the message. And I said, man, what in the world are you even doing here? Hadn't you got enough credit built up in AA to stay sober? And he said, you know what, I just don't ever want to drink again. And that's why I'm here. And that was a vital message, man. That came through loud and clear that that's got to be a vital part of my personal sobriety, because I'll revert back to serving myself every time. I'll revert back into self-centeredness, serving myself, and I'll become miserable with everything I want in life. So thank you guys for showing me that path. Any other housekeeping things? I don't think I have worked the steps. I'll work the steps with other people, and I think that's about it. So I'm going to tell you in a general way what it was like, what happened, and what it's like today, and my path to surrender, and what happened when I finally did hit bottom, and then what happened when I took these spiritual tools that you guys offer and put them into my life, and how my life changed dramatically after that. Just a little bookend is, last year we had a baby boy, my wife and I, July 10th, 2022. He's coming up on a year. He's the greatest joy of our life. And I look down at him, it's our first child, I look down at him and he smiles up at me, and I just about lose it, y'all. I mean, I feel the most joy, and I think, how can a street walking alcoholic derelict ever have this type of joy and deserve this type of thing? And the answer is I don't. And it definitely came through the grace of God in this program. And what a gift. What a gift. So there was alcoholism in my family when I was younger, and it was the type that was kind of hidden from one family member, and the other person didn't drink, and it was just dishonesty, resentment, constant chaos. The marriage was falling apart. And the only thing I could come away with as a 12-year-old kid seeing this stuff unfold was, if that's what drugs and alcohol do to a family, to a relationship, to the kids, I don't want anything to do with it, ever. And I made a commitment early on, I'm not touching this stuff. And people had been saying, it's genetic, it's hereditary, be careful, don't get into it. And I just said, no problem, I'm never messing with this stuff. So I went through elementary school, middle school, high school, hadn't ever drank enough alcohol to feel the effect, staying away from it altogether. I went to Sand Hills Community College for about a year and transferred up to NC State. And there was this underlying feeling of I just didn't fit in, no matter where I went. Was separate from you guys. And that was intensified when I got to Raleigh and there was 25,000 college students up there. I mean, it was terrible in my high school with 1,200 people, but it was even worse at a university. And I felt completely out of place, y'all. Everybody else is going to fraternity parties, going to sorority parties, getting fake IDs made, going out playing beer pong, having a great time. And what do I do on Friday night is, after my last class is done, I come back to Carthage, town of 2,500 people at the time, spend my afternoons out in the garage working on four-wheelers and going camping and going fishing and hanging with about 3 people I felt comfortable around. So I was not having the college experience. I was in my junior year up there. I'm making my way decent, C's and B's, and I was planning on graduating and everything. And the relationship I'd been in for several years, and even through high school, was kind of falling apart. And I found myself single, and back in Carthage, and a bunch of my friends from the college were coming home. They were going to have a house party over in Whistler Pines. And they said, Seth, you got to come, man. This is 5 miles from your house. There's an upstairs bedroom that you can stay in. You're not going to get arrested. Nothing bad's going to happen. You got to come over here. We've got kegs of beer. We're going to have a band playing. It's just going to be an awesome time, All these kids from out of town are coming down. You just got to come over. And I said, okay, I'll come over and just make an appearance, but then I'm out. So I go over there, and I don't know if you've ever showed up at a house party or any kind of get-together where you didn't know a lot of the people, and you walk into a party or a backyard patio area with about this many people that you don't know, and you feel seized up with social anxiety, just absolutely clammed up. I mean, instant anxiety through the roof. Don't know how to approach anybody. Is he going to try to fight me? What if I introduce myself to her and she shoots me down? I look like an idiot in front of everybody. What if the cops come? We're going to have to hit the woods and run out of here. I mean, there was just this litany of thoughts going on. It was like a freight train in my head, and it almost took my breath away, thinking, how am I going to interact with people here? I felt like, and I heard a speaker say, and it's exactly what I felt like, you guys all rode here in the same car, and I came separate. Like, that when you spend about an hour or two in the car with somebody, you just cut through all the BS and you're just two beings driving down the road and you're just together. I felt like you guys all had that going on. I was a separate entity. And I sat down on some steps and was observing the party and looking out and just trying to plan my escape, thinking, how can I get out of here without anybody seeing me? And a friend of mine brought over a solo cup full of keg beer. And he said, Seth, you're 20 years old, man. We've all got fake IDs. We've been out here drinking, meeting new and interesting people, getting job opportunities, getting laid, all kinds of stuff going on. You're missing the boat, the whole college experience, man. You're 20 years old. Drink this thing down as fast as you can. You can stay in the upstairs bedroom. Nothing's bad's going to happen. You got nothing to worry about. And the resolution I made at 12 was just paper thin, and I drank it. I drank it as quick as I could. And y'all, I swear, it wasn't 2 minutes. There was this tingling sensation that started on my scalp right here. It went down the back of my scalp, down my neck, my shoulders dropped down. I felt this deep breath of air going to my lungs, my thighs, knees, calves, ankles, the bottoms of my feet felt alive in a new way. Like this vibratory field just went through my body. I felt warm, like a warm blanket. And I thought, man, this might be the best I've ever felt physically in my life. I looked out across the party that was just hostile, and are they going to fight me, and how am I going to introduce myself, and what do I even say if I want to talk to somebody? And you guys just seemed completely welcoming. I mean, there was no inhibition about approaching anybody. I could say, have you ever been kayaking up in Uwharrie? There's the Yadkin River. You like to go four-wheeling up there? We should go camping one night. Let's go get some coffee over across the tracks. And I mean, I could think of a million ways to introduce myself. My thoughts were perfectly clear. And just my whole perception of the party completely changed. I'm not being misogynistic. I'm going to give you a factual account of what happened. About that time, the most beautiful set of legs I'd ever seen in my life came walking down the steps I was sitting on. And without even thinking about it, I just turned like that, and I had so much swagger. And I said, hey, why don't you sit down for a minute? And she sat down, and the next thing I know, we are full display, tongue locked in front of everybody, zero modesty, and I'm thinking to myself, this stuff is amazing. Whatever I just poured into my body, it has completely changed my life. I felt whole, I felt complete, and I thought, man, you've been missing out on this for 20 years. And this has got to be one of the most important discoveries you've ever made. And I mean, honestly, it was a great night. It was a good night. I woke up in that upstairs bedroom. She was gone, but man, I felt great. I still had my wallet, all my clothes. I could piece together most of the night and what happened. The cops hadn't come. I hadn't been arrested. I wasn't sleeping under a bridge. I didn't get any DUIs. And the first thing that was obviously clear was, Seth, you're not an alcoholic. Great news. Alcoholics sleep under bridges. They get DUIs. They run into telephone poles. They crash their cars. They go to jail. None of that happened. You're not alcoholic. Great news. The second revelation was, are you going to drink again? And it was, absolutely. Any opportunity I get for the rest of my life, I'm going to use this tool that just completely helped me integrate into the world I live in a new way that I didn't even think was possible. I mean, it was a very addictive experience from the first time. And about that time, I don't know if y'all look back in hindsight and think, man, God was really giving me some red flags about the whole drinking thing. But about that time, my cell phone rang. And I thought me and the girl, whoever it was, were going to get married. Because you kiss on full display, you know, your boyfriend, girlfriend. I was thinking we're going to get married, have kids. I mean, my life is set now. And I was thinking we're going to get together again for sure, you know. And it was the girl's friend, and she said, Seth, that's not right what you did. You shouldn't have done that. I said, what are you talking about? She said, you came on to her. She was already tipsy and drunk, and she just didn't know. That's just not right. It's perverted. I said, what in the world are you talking about? And she said, you know damn well she's your second cousin. And I don't know if y'all have ever heard anything from the night before that you weren't aware of, and it's almost too much to handle sometimes when they start telling you what happened. I had to act like the phone was breaking up and hang up. So I put the phone down, and with this new piece of information, I had to completely reevaluate the situation. And the first question that came up instantaneously was, Seth, are you going to drink again knowing now that you hooked up with your second cousin in front of everybody? My answer was, that was an honest mistake. You damn right, I'm going to drink again. For anything that powerful, for anything that completely life-changing, for any tool that did that and was that strong and that great of a tool in my life, I'm willing to pay some prices. And if hooking up with a second cousin once in a while is the price I got to pay, it's worth it. You know, I didn't even know what was going on, man. So from day one, I'm on the board, and I'm going to drink it every opportunity I get. What I didn't know was, if you start chugging this stuff down like it's water, something starts to change up here. And even though in the very beginning, from 20 to 25, I graduated from college. My dad was working for an engineering company that built power plants all over the world. And he got my foot in the door and got me hired, got me an interview. I got in, and I started working for Fluor Corporation as a project control specialist, basically a helper to the project manager. And I went to Greenville, South Carolina to the engineering office, got trained up some, and then moved down to College Station, Texas. And I was 22, 23 years old in 2007. And they said, would you like to come down to College Station, Texas to work on a power plant for $122,000 a year? I'm 22, right out of college, budding alcoholic. We're going to Texas A&M, College Station, 65,000 college students. And that was not a good idea, but I said, hell yeah, I'm ready to go. So we're down there. I moved down there. The job's going good. I'm performing well. And from the first few years, I can control it. If my dad's at the dinner table and I see him kind of eyeing me and looking at how many drinks I'm having, I can push it away. And when the waitress comes by, I say, no, I'm okay for tonight. Or if I know I got to be at work in the morning, I can push it away and say, okay. And the crazy thing is, my mind, even today, will revert back to those times where I had a little control and I had a dog in the fight. It'll think back about the times where things weren't so bad. But somewhere in the next few years, I think around the time I was 24 or 25, I was drinking at every opportunity I could get. Most days of the week. Any party, going out, anybody in the room's going out tonight, I'm going with you. And I think I drank myself across the line into alcoholism, if I didn't already have it. And I started to experience what Dr. Silkworth talks about in the doctor's opinion in the description of the alcoholic. I drank because I liked the effect produced by alcohol. The sensation was elusive. I couldn't differentiate the truth from the false. And people would start to tell me, Seth, you need to be careful. You might have a problem. And I'm saying, man, I'm 25. What are you talking about? 25-year-olds drink hard, work hard, go to work. I'm working on a construction site. I love my job. We're building 2 steam-fired turbine generators. There's 2,500 of our craft laborers on site and about 1,000 subcontractors on site. We got 80 cranes flying steel, pipe, electrical around. We got pans, off-road trucks, dozers, graders going everywhere. I mean, it was a kid like me who grew up on farm equipment. It was my dream come true. And I really felt a part of something bigger. And I desperately needed this job. And my job was to look at the drawings, whether it's piping, steel, electrical, and go up on the structure and see how much we had completed and put it back in a computer program and do a report on it and then send it to project management. And the way that this illness, this disease, alcoholism started to manifest was I'd be up on the boiler 280 feet in the air with my drawing looking at 8-inch run of steam pipe. I'd be counting the welds on it. It's 2 o'clock on the afternoon on a Wednesday. And my mind says, you know, Seth, there is a gas station at the end of the project site road. And right now they've got those round coolers with the flip-up lids. And they've got ice-cold 24-ounce beers in those coolers right now. And it's 2 o'clock on a Wednesday, and I start getting thirsty, y'all. I start obsessing over it. I start getting so identified and just mentally obsessed, I can't hardly do my job. How many welds am I looking at? How many feet of pipe is this? I can't even focus. Y'all, I was experiencing the mental obsession that Silkworth talks about, irritability, restlessness, and discontent, 24, 25 years old. So when I got down off the boiler and I made it to the end of the day, you know exactly what I did. I went straight to that store. I got my 2 brown bags, and on the hour drive home back to College Station, I turned them up. And I started feeling better about my job and better about my relationship and better about everything that was bothering me all day at work. And I had a simple plan. I was going to drink the 2 and go home, cook some burgers, and go to bed because we got to be at work early in the morning. Do y'all ever start drinking and change your plan? I changed the plan. Not alcohol, I changed it. So on my way home, after I get the second 2 in and I'm feeling pretty good, I think, hey, they got chicken wings at the Duel and Piano Bar tonight. It's Wednesday night. Let's go down to the Duel and Piano Bar, get some chicken wings, a few Coors Lights, home by 9:30, 10, nothing major. I get down to the Duel and Piano Bar. They get the wings served. And as the waitress comes by, it occurs to me that people like to do shots. They like the Jaeger bomb. They like tequila, a little salt right here, some lime. Let's get some shots going. See, I think I'm driving the boat, but really the phenomenon of craving's driving me, and I have no idea. And before I know it, I lose track of time, and the bartender hits the bar and says, it's last call for alcohol. It's 1:55 a.m. and a sense of complete disbelief goes through my body. And I say, what are you talking about? We aren't ready to stop this thing now. We got to keep this party going. And that's the phenomenon of craving. And that's what I had 24, 25 years old, and was in no place to, I had lost control. Men and women who have lost the ability to control their drinking. I had no idea how much trouble I was in. So, it's a downhill spiral when those things start happening. And I hung on through that project. I got moved to a project in Charlottesville, Virginia. And by this time, it had started, it was really consuming every aspect of my life. The obsession had gotten worse, the phenomenon of craving had gotten worse, and I had much less control. And it wasn't long before this great corporation that my dad helped me get into, he was a vice president at, called me into an office with my boss, his boss, and a couple HR managers, with something just like this on the table, recording everything in there. And they said, Mr. Bennett, we've come here to give you a couple options. And I knew my rope was getting thin, but they said, we've got a couple options for you. We like you, and we think you're a good guy. When you got here for the first few years, you did a great job. You did everything we asked you to do. We need you back in that state of being whenever you got here. And they said, so we will offer you, under the Family Medical Leave Act, we'll give you treatment. We'll help pay for the treatment. And while you're going to treatment, we'll give you half of your salary so you have some walk-around money. When you come back after treatment, you get yourself straightened up, you come back into your job like you never left, like it never happened. Just come back healthy and responsible. And option B is you take that cardboard box down to your desk and you're terminated today. You're done. And pack your stuff up. And that proposition seems so simple. But when you're a chronic alcoholic and this drink has completely changed your life, has given you a new life, has allowed you to integrate and live happily and in moments of joy amongst chaos going on in your life, and somebody's saying you got to give up this prized possession if you want to work here. That's all I heard. And I said, thank you so much for everything you've done for me, but I simply cannot pay that price. If that's what I got to do to keep working here, I got to give it up. I said, I can't do it. So as I walked out with this cardboard box full of things to this $850 a month truck payment, $2,200 a month apartment, had maxed out my credit cards, the company's credit cards, the 401k, everything was gone, tremendous amount of pressure. I could only think of one thing I needed to do right then. Go get wasted and think of a way out of this problem. I've created a serious predicament, and I'm going to get drunk and think my way out of it. So I did. And I ended up in my mom's basement, 26. And by this time, y'all, I'm definitely starting to experience the demoralization factor that's talked about in the big book. I know right from wrong. I know not to be dishonest. I know and was raised with a good value and moral system, but I cannot live up to it. No matter how hard I try. The obsession it's just got a hold of me in a chokehold. And I'm doing anything this stuff says to do to keep the party going. And within just a few months, thank God my mom had found sobriety and knew about AA and knew about enabling. And thank God she said, son, you can't stay here. And if you do come on our property, we're going to press charges for trespassing. You got to go. So at that moment, I remember being confused and thinking, how has my life deteriorated so quickly? I mean, it was like every thread was unraveling, and I thought, how has this happened? I don't understand what's going on. And I said, I've got to find a way out of this issue. And my main plan was, I got to find a way to drink and party effectively without getting in any trouble and hurting anybody. That's the main goal. I don't want to live in a mansion. I don't want to have a lot of money. I just want to be able to stay messed up 24 hours a day without hurting anybody and going to jail. So about that time, a friend called, and it was a high school buddy I went to high school with, and he had a metalworking business in Billings, Montana, of all places. I'm a Carthage, North Carolina kid that was raised here. Went to a little high school here, and he says, Seth, have you ever been to Montana? I said, no. He said, it's a beautiful place, man. There's Yellowstone National Park out here, Glacier National Park, beautiful wide open spaces, 12,000 foot mountains coming up out of valleys, rivers flowing all over the place, trout fishing. He said, Seth, why don't you come out here, get sober, get straightened up, go to treatment, and you can come live with me until you get your feet under you and dry out a little bit. And man, I honestly started crying. I thought, this is it. Thank you, God, for this opportunity. I'm going to do it. I'm going out here and I'm going to straighten up. I'm going to turn my life around. This is it. Because, I mean, by this point, it really wasn't any fun. 26, 27, it wasn't any fun. And so I get out to Billings, I go to treatment. I get out of treatment, and I learned a lot of very interesting things in treatment about psychology and experiments on rats and getting rats addicted to alcohol and cocaine, and that the rats would give up the social structure and not drink water or eat food. They just press the cocaine water bottle all the time. And I thought, it makes perfect sense. I'm just a rat that's drinking the cocaine water bottle. If I stay away from that, I'll be fine. And I'll just integrate back into society. I don't need meetings and all this help and a spiritual connection. It's simple. It's black and white. Just stay away from the stuff. So I got out with high hopes and great confidence. And man, I felt better than I ever had felt. I felt probably physically better than I do right now with 8 years of sobriety. And I'm 26 years old, and I start walking around the block my buddy lives on, just feeling great, blue sky, 72 degrees, spring in Montana. And I think, you know what, Seth, you're kind of a burden on Jordan because you're working for him, and he's not got a lot of work going on, but he's supporting you. You're living in his house. You could go downtown and have dinner and try to rub shoulders with somebody, see if anybody's hiring. Just get dinner. And you could go out, and you don't have to get back on the hard stuff, but you could have a Sam Adams or some respectable lager, just for the taste. And I said, yeah, that's that's not a bad idea. Don't get back on the hard stuff. Just go down there and just take it easy and try to find a job. And that's what's so cunningly. This illness comes at me through my own rational mind. I cannot fight my own rational mind. And it gets me down there, and I open up a bottle, and I let the lion out of the cage again. But this time, I'm 2,300 miles from home, 2,300 miles from anybody that loves me, in a new city. And within just a few weeks, Jordan, who I went out there to stay with, said, you got to go. You are too dangerous to be living here. And he kicks me out. I'm living in the back of my truck. And the game plan was never to become homeless in Billings, Montana. If I would have known that's what was going to happen, I would have gone somewhere warm, Texas, Florida, California. Do not go to Montana, South Dakota, North Dakota, Wyoming if you're going to be homeless. It's frigid cold up there in the winter. I mean, negative 13, negative 15 degrees. They show you Yellowstone on the series in the summer. It's not like that in the winter. It's absolutely horrible. So I'm living in the back of my truck, and I think I'll just live in the back of my truck for a little while. I'll just camp out until I find a place to stay. It'll be kind of cool, travel around a little bit, see the state, just be a vagabond, it'd be nice. So I'm living in the back of the truck, but alcoholism has got me chained to this little group of people that get the drink and I drink with and I party with. And I can't leave to do anything. All I can do is stay messed up 24 hours a day. And we finally get a great idea and say, you know what, let's go to Las Vegas. We'll go out to Las Vegas and turn things around. We'll go out there and really show them and tell them how great we are when we get there. And then we started for Vegas, and within 40 minutes down the road, 2 gigantic mule deer come out in the middle of the road, and we hit the mule deer with the truck, and the radiator crushed, the truck's total lost, and we are screwed. And I'm screwed, and now I'm without my home and transportation. So we hitch a ride back to Billings, and that's what started the darkest period of my drinking. And for the next 16 to 18 months, I walked the streets as I can't describe what it was like an animal. And I had passed into this weird zone, y'all, that some of y'all have too. Whatever the state I was living in, going into Walmart, putting a pair of clothes on under my dirty clothes in the dressing room, coming out, stripping my dirty clothes off, staying in a $45 night motel once in a while where you can see through to the next room, getting arrested on a regular basis, charges getting more and more serious, and I just said, you know what, Seth, this is just your life. You're never going to see your parents again. You're never going to amount to anything. You're never going to integrate back into society. This is it. And there's a surrender that happened. I said, I'm just going to live like this until my heart stops beating. And I just gave into that lifestyle. And I had no regard for my life. I had no regard for my health. Took extreme health risk and suffered the consequences from many of them. And by the time I was 29 years old, I was a product of the Yellowstone County Detention Facility, which was my only address. And when I was arrested, it just said transient because I had no home. And on my sentencing date for two felonies that I had gotten kind of back to back in a short period of time, I went shackled into the courtroom, and I looked over to my left, and my mom and dad were sitting in the courtroom. I never thought I'd see them again. I just had very limited contact. Once every 2 or 3 months, I'd call them from jail, but I just didn't think I'd ever see them again. And I broke down crying in the courtroom. And the judge said, Mr. Bennett, we have your parents out here. They've come to try to support you, and we think rather than doing the 3 years in Montana State Prison like you've pled to in your plea deal, we think you might need treatment. You might be better off in treatment. We think you have chronic alcoholism and addiction. And would you rather, instead of doing the 3 years, would you like to go back to North Carolina with your parents and go to Samaritan Colony and go live in a sober living house for at least 9 months? Which one do you want to do? And I didn't have to think about it long, man. Because I don't like eating through those little slits in the door where they push your beans through the door on a slide. I just didn't like it. And I said, I'd love to go back to North Carolina. I was elated. And I just thought, man, this is it. I'm really going to do it. And y'all, I think every one of us that I've ever talked to has this thing in the back of their mind. I'm really going to straighten up, but I'm going to end it on a good note. I'm going to end it on one last good party, right? I don't want to end it on that run I got arrested on. I want to end it on a fresh, happy note. So I tried the game again, and y'all know as well as I do, you get to a certain point where you could drink all the liquor in Moore County or do anything else in Moore County, and you can't get back here to the good old days. That ship has sailed out in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, and it ain't never coming back. It's just misery, depression, thinking about my little sister, my mom and dad, all my friends who had come out to Montana to try to help me and get me out of there over the years, and I just cannot pull it together. And I'm a sobbing, weeping, that page 8, bitter morass of self-pity, quicksand, went out in every direction. And that's when I had one of the most important experiences of my life, where I was beaten into a state of reasonableness, and I experienced what the big book says. Crushed by a self-imposed crisis we could not postpone or evade, we had to fearlessly face the proposition that God is either everything or he is nothing. Crushed by a self-imposed crisis. Here you are, Seth. You can't stop drinking, and you can't keep drinking. And that's when something down in here said, please help me, I can't do this anymore. And I gave up. And temporarily my ego had been submitted. And I was willing to take any suggestion, any advice. And within 2 weeks, I found myself being delivered to Samaritan Colony in the back of my mom's car. Absolute trembling, nervous wreck, just like Bill when he went into the hospital. And I had 11 guys come out and greet me and say, we're glad you're here. We're all trying to do the same thing you're trying to do. And we're learning a lot about recovery down here and about sobriety and about the path. And I trusted them, and I knew. And for this time, I mean, y'all know, you can't hear until you can hear. And even though I'd been to hundreds of meetings and I'd been to treatment facilities all over the place, and I tried, grabbing the brass ring of sobriety, I couldn't grab it. But this time I could hear y'all's stories. I could hear reunited homes, dads and moms showing up, people integrating back into society, getting jobs, driving cars that were licensed and not stolen. And I just thought it was amazing that you guys had suffered the same thing I had in terms of not being able to stop regardless of the consequences. And here you were, sober, happy, at peace, content, fulfilled, and in action. And I thought, man, if they can do it, maybe I can do it. Purely theoretical. If AJ can get it, if Steve can get it, if Blake can get it, Daniel, if you guys can do it over a prolonged period of time, maybe I can do it. And that was my second step. I thought, if you guys can do it, I can do it. And the third step came around, and for my money, the biggest surrender I ever had, and the most important one, was when I knelt down in the chapel and said, God, if you want me to try this AA thing, that I don't even know if it works, and give it my very best shot, get the sponsor, work the steps, do everything they tell me to do at Samaritan Colony, if that's what you want me to do, God, I'm going to do it. I'll give it my very best shot. And that was my third step. I'm just going to follow the rest of the program. And the moment I got up until today, I've not had the compulsion, that driving compulsion that took me to the cooler with the flip-up lid with the 2 cans in it. I've not had that compulsion come back. So I know there was something vitally important about the pure intent to fully embrace that program of AA and do the third step and turn it over to God. There was something that happened there that cannot be, it was priceless. And so they had said, God, you've got your fourth step to do, and I was writing out my fourth step, and I was procrastinating like everybody else does. And the night before it was due, and I knew I was going to get kicked out the next day if I didn't do it, I drank a pot of coffee at about 10 p.m. and stayed up for the next 4 or 5 hours writing my fourth step. Just put it out there. I love when I heard Tom Ivister speak one time. He said, it was the most important day's work I have ever done in my entire life. And when I shared that fourth step with Robert down at the colony, and the guys had been telling me, Seth, we don't know what happens, but when you put this stuff out there in your fifth step and you get it out there in front of God, in front of somebody else, something changes. There's something that happens, something that takes place. And I shared that stuff, and I started to feel taken care of, and I started to feel more whole and complete. And one thing I knew after doing the most honest fifth step I could do was there's something very spiritual and special and powerful about this AA program. It was completely not theoretical at that point. The second step had been reinforced with experiential evidence. I knew you guys had something beyond human power here. I felt the presence of my higher power. I walked out into the parking area. I looked at the sunset going down over towards Ellerby and saw the most vivid oranges, purples, pinks, and reds I had ever seen in my life. I saw the leaves on the trees with a new vibrance. I heard birds singing in a new high definition that I hadn't heard or been observant enough to experience my entire life. Something critical happened during my fifth step. I don't know what it was, but that was some of the experiences I had. Probably most importantly was this thing can really work for long-term sobriety. The compulsion was gone. I moved into the Samaritan house, which was a sober living environment, and my life began to take off like a rocket. I mean, I was working the steps. I had gotten a sponsor. I was trying to give this thing away to anybody to have it. I'd come over here. Steve would welcome me, even though I was some knucklehead that would overshare in every meeting. And he'd have to shut me down, but he'd say, we're glad you're here, man. And I'd sit down and be a part. And soon, before long, you guys started asking me to do things or go here. Do you want to go here? Do you want to be a part of this? And I said, sure, if you guys are doing it, it's working for you, it might work for me. I had a job as a landscape helper for my first couple of years. And my job as the low man on the totem pole was pick up pine cones. I'm talking about a lot of pine cones. We had a homeowner association with 7 acres of pine forests that had to be pristine and spotless every week. So me and one other guy, our job for 2 days was picking up pine cones and sticks. So I'd put speaker tapes in and listen to Howard P. and Tom I. and Wallace and everybody else and Chuck C. And I would be walking through picking up these pine cones and looking up at this blue sky with clouds floating by and big pine trees in a state of absolute bliss, y'all. Absolute peace, happiness, contentment, perfectly okay with the job I was doing. And I would think, man, you really did something bad with the drugs, man. To be in this much happiness and at peace and very cool with the situation. And I'm looking over at my buddy saying, this sucks, man. I can't stand this job. I'm quitting here as soon as I can. And I'm just thinking, man, I'll do this for the rest of my life. This is a great reward, man. See, something had happened, and I needed that to happen. My ego had been crushed, and I was completely content. And I found that as long as I can stay surrendered and in that state of thy will be done, God, you know what's best for me, I'll just take the changes, and if it's not my plan, and so be it. I stay in a pretty happy place, pretty good place. About a year sober, she was my girlfriend at the time, my wife now, we had a trip given to us to go down to Wrightsville Beach. And we went down there. We had a couple nights we were staying down there. And we were new and fresh in sobriety, and we just still hadn't even gotten a grip on the fact that we had survived, because she's in recovery too, survived what we had gone through. And everything was new and fresh. But we walked out on the beach down where the coast turns into kind of a nature preserve, and there's no houses down there, and there's these dune grasses, and you kind of come up over the dune, and then there's the infinite blue of the Atlantic Ocean, and this cool salt air breeze hitting you, and seagulls flying by, and the shh, shh, and tears just start flowing out of my eyes, man. I can't believe it's so beautiful. I feel conscious companionship with my Creator. I know what they're talking about. I know that conscious contact is the name of the game. And both of us just tear up and just lose it. And we're sobbing and thinking, how can it be that two people like us and people in AA survive and live this type of life? It's just beautiful. So I know what it's like to have highs, very high places like that. And I thought, man, this is better than anything I ever put in my body. This experience is better than anything. And then in 2018, my grandfather, who was like my best friend, he helped me start my business. He gave me a dump truck and gave me a place to stay. And we went to eat dinner all the time, and we were just best buddies. And he would send me messages when I was homeless in Montana on Facebook saying, son, we know you can make it. 80-something years old, keep trying. And I'd get the messages later in life when I finally got back on. So he really was like one of my great kind of supporters. But in 2018, he had lung cancer, and we were doing the hospice care in his house, and I was staying with him some nights. My mom was staying sometimes. And we lay there on the bed in the middle of September 2018, holding hands, watching TV, and just being with each other. Just purely being with each other. Nobody was saying anything. We know there was deep love and compassion for one another. Watching TV, everything was good. And he said, son, I love you. Keep doing what you're doing. I went home that night. At 4 o'clock in the morning, my mom called and said, he's gone. Perfectly, peacefully, no fight, no trouble. He's at peace, he's gone, and everything's going to be all right. But see, that had been one of my main reservations was, can Alcoholics Anonymous work, and can I stay sober through the loss of somebody I'm deeply in love with, compassionate towards? And when she said that, I felt the strangest sensation, just complete peace. A burden was gone. There was a lightness. I was happy. I was okay with it. I was sad, but I was okay. And I didn't want to drink. And I instantaneously went over there and tried to help out. And I thought, damn, this can work not only on the mountaintops, but in the valleys too. This is just amazing. So, I owe this program my life. The last 8 years have been the most incredible experience of my life. There are ups and downs, but in general, I kind of cruise in that state I was looking for when I was drinking, of contentment, joy, moments of bliss, moments of euphoria and happiness. But it's kind of like we can live in that state most of the time, and it's through conscious contact. I spend a lot of time with my higher power. I find my higher power in nature and outdoors and in others. It's through service and trying to give it away and being involved with people like you and getting into service. And it's as a result of following the simple steps you guys outlined in this program. And I owe you all my life. Thank you so much for letting me share.